Hi guys. For real this
Hey
time.
guys.
You can actually hear us this time, hopefully. That was
Yeah,
weird. Okay.
we had some little issues, but gotta
Whew.
love technology, right?
Yep, gotta love it. Ooh,
So we haven't done a check-in, but it's week 4 of
yeah.
February. Like, I feel like we're just trucking right
I
along. I know
know.
my schedule has gotten busy.
Yeah.
Winter has been nuts.
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like we've been in the throes of it. Like Game of Thrones level of winter has been here.
Yeah.
Like winter is not coming, winter
Definitely.
has been here.
Yeah, it's been
So
here. It's overstayed its welcome. It's time for
we're
it to
ready
go.
for spring. Like
Yeah.
I'm a
Although
winter girl and I'm even sick of the
although I'm
snow and
not
ice and like ready for spring.
I'm not ready for my allergies to kick up again, but I'm done with the
Oh,
snow
that's
and done with
true.
the cold. So, as much as I like
Speaking of
wearing
like
hoodies all the
your
time,
mhm.
I'm done with them.
I've enjoyed it because I really have like my sister bought me this new sweater. But
Hmm.
speaking of allergies though, we've been watching Once Upon a Time or rewatching Once Upon a Time, my sister and I,
Hmm.
and there was an episode today with like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and like Sneezy was talking about his allergies
Oh,
and I'm like, you are sneezy. That is literally
I'm
what you like. Not
sneezy.
you don't
Yep.
actually say that, but like he
Yeah.
has in that when they tweaked it, so he's sneezy because he has a lot of allergies, and I'm
Oh,
like,
I
oh
love
my
that.
gosh,
That's
that is
funny.
so you. And I'm
I
like, I
love
would be
that.
grumpy, and oh, it's just hilarious or dopey probably.
Yeah. Isn't there
Oh,
one that's best? Isn't there? Isn't bashful one?
bashful.
Pretty sure that
You
would
know,
be
I forgot about
Alicia.
that. Oh yes, for sure. All right. Well, I have been behind on my shorts. So like I'm still finishing up my Quicksilver shorts, but I
Oh,
did finish it.
my
So,
I went through. I posted an update earlier, a short update earlier when I was probably about 30 or 40 pages before where
mhm.
I'm at now,
Oh yeah.
and
Nice.
yeah, I it's been a roller coaster since then. Because at first I thought that my prediction was completely wrong, and then my prediction ended up being correct to some extent, and I'm just like, oh
Mhm.
man, God,
Just crazy. Well, like I said, I finished Quicksilver, um, and did not do. I did film my review and posted my review and all that stuff. So, it's a 5-star read for me. I really, really, really enjoyed it. The ending definitely left me wanting book 2. And there's like one of the twists I wasn't really fond of, so it depends on how it's played out in book 2. But the rest of the twists were like you just had one thing after another after another. I think we discorded, but we just didn't
mm-hmm.
record anything.
Yeah.
And I remember telling you about that. And somebody convinced me. I don't know who this person was, because I mean, crazy, but somebody convinced me to read Crown of Midnight.
Mm-hmm.
So my progress has been slow. If you've noticed on Goodreads, it's literally like I'm on page 22. And now the next night I'm on
Yeah.
page 25. And I made it to page 27. And like, I don't know. But like I've managed to read one chapter a day with the exception of like last night I read a single scene.
Yeah.
Any progress is progress, but
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of getting me out of reading. There's nothing wrong with it and I like it. I feel like my younger self would have just ate this up. Like I would have loved like it so much. It's just not, it feels a little like less than like Onyx Storm or Quicksilver or some of these like Serpent in the Wings of Night. Like it just feels less and I don't know how
Yeah.
to explain it, and it's just like I'm not into reading anymore, which is kind of like not a good thing, but I still am trying to push through it so the series gets better. But I would say, is it after book 3 then you read Assassin's Blade, or is it
Mm,
before? I don't remember.
let me look this up because it's probably good
Okay.
for us to know. Um, yeah, after that one, it's Assassin Blade.
So after this
For
one,
the
okay.
or the
So
reading
what I
order
was
that you're doing, it would be after this one. Would be Assassin's
so
Blade.
my plan is if I manage to get through this book, read Assassin's Blade and then read the next book after that.
Mm-hmm.
And if that book still doesn't draw me in, I'm probably going to DNF the series, but it kind of depends on because I know Assassin's Blade is kind of like a must read and then the book 3 technically book 3, unless you count Assassin's Blade or not, like the chronologically book 3. That one's gonna have to be getting better than these two, or I'm probably gonna very like slow down on the series and not go back to it, or skip it and go to Crescent City or something else. So like it kind of hinges on, I'm really just trying to get through Crown of Midnight. So that's pretty much where I'm at right now. But I know you said like earlier before the live stream, you just read a plot twist or something that happened. So how are you? What is your heart? Like, how are you? Tell us everything. Not everything, obviously. Tell us non-spoilery what you're going through.
I don't know. I'm shell shocked.
You mentioned
right now.
the word betrayal. You mentioned the word betrayal.
God.
I heard that.
Oh my God.
She's killing me. I want to read Crescent City so bad. It's killing me, guys. It's killing me.
Well, considering you said you hated the character when you read the first chapter, I don't know if you would like it much either.
It may take me a bit too.
like
I'm just
wondering, like, if it's just ACOTAR is gonna be your thing. If you don't like the other two. Oh man, sorry. Anyway,
honestly, a lot of the other aspects that you've talked about has gotten me intrigued, like the sci-fi, not sci-fi, but like the urban fantasy, the fantasy version of CSI, like the mystery, the relationship and dynamics, like everything that you've mentioned has actually intrigued me so far. So if I can just go in with the fact knowing that Bryce is not going to be a character that I'm overly fond of for a while, I think I may be okay, because there may be enough else about the book to like really draw me in. But I probably shouldn't be talking about this because I still need to stick with Crown of Midnight. I'm trying, guys. I really am.
Throne of Glass is like an epic fantasy of epic fantasies. But I would argue the first couple books are young adult fantasy.
That's why I'm struggling. I bet because I don't like young adults.
And that's why it like makes me very sad when you even mention the thought of DNFing the series, because once you get to like Queen of Shadows or Empire of Storms or even Heir of Fire, like it grows from a young adult fantasy. Like, especially when you get into the tandem read stuff, and Kingdom of Ash is just like a book full of angst. Like, and they're like, I've seen multiple like TikTokers, book talkers, Instagrammers that like when they get like they at the end of Tower of Dawn they cry.
Oh,
like,
wow.
They literally cry at the Tower of Dawn. I was angry at the end of Tower of, and not Tower of Dawn, Empire of Storms. They will cry at the end of Empire of Storms.
I remember.
And I was angry. I was angry at the end.
Yeah.
But I probably would be considered a little bit nitpicky in that one for various reasons. But
right now the only male character that I like is Kale. Right now, I have issues with Dorian just because he's like this sheltered princeling just boy.
Literally, that's him for books.
Kale has a lot of. I feel like Kale has a lot of potential, but it's just like, I don't know. He's captain of the guard, and like I like that he's guilty over, spoiler alerts for Throne of Glass, Kane's death. Honestly, the book's been out for a while, so if you don't know by now, then it's your fault. But the fact that he is guilty over King's death, on the one hand, I like that, but like, it's hard after reading guys like Xaden or Kingfisher or all the other dudes. It's like, you've never even killed somebody, and he's like young, and it's just really immature, but like he has so much potential, and it's just like, so, and I'm kind of intrigued by like the fact that she's been secretly, spoiler alerts, by the way, for this that's the beginning of Crown of Midnight. She's been, secretly letting the people live. So I'm interested to see. And then she's trying to find this rebellion. And I think the Nemia, the in chick, is kind of involved with rebellion and stuff. So it's like, it's kind of intriguing. It's just not hooking me. And I'm not reading as much as I did like with Onyx Storm or Quicksilver, where I'm just sucked in. And I'm living in this world, and I'm so excited, and I'm thinking about it, and I want to read it. You know, it's just like not the same.
Yeah.
and I have to force myself to read every night, so it feels like a job and it feels like a quota, that kind of vibe. Um, and a lot of it's probably the fact that it's YA instead of epic. Like, eventually, hopefully, it'll get,
It
based
will.
on what you've said in other people, like it'll get better. But
I need to look up
yeah.
one specific thing. Yeah, it'll get better. I remember the ending to this, like what happened. Okay, I had to double check on something on an event that
Mhm.
happens, and it happens in the book you're
Right.
reading. Okay, good to
Okay.
know. Good to know.
Which I do remember with Throne of Glass, at some point I
Yeah.
did reach a point where it did get interesting enough that it wasn't as hard, like it was not as tedious to read as it started off. So I did get interested in pieces of Throne of Glass. And so
Mhm.
I'm hoping that Crown of Midnight will kind of have that vibe. If I
Mhm.
can just get past this book, I think I'll be okay, because you said Assassin's Blade is good for a collection,
Mhm.
and it'll feel quicker because it is a collection. And then hopefully the third book will just pick up and not even be YA anymore. But the one good thing I will say, the fact that it's YA means there's no spice in Throne of Glass or Crown of Midnight.
Mhm.
And that is kind of refreshing, especially after Quicksilver, because Quicksilver got a little heavy with the spice. Like, it was a little heavy. So it's nice to have that relaxing read where every time her and Kale are in a scene together, I don't have to worry about, is this going to get spicy,
Mhm.
at least for the time being. Um, and I will say I do like that they have some sort of relation. I think it seems like more of a situationship right now, but I do like that is still kind of a part of it. And like that Kale is kind of hesitant. I forget why. I just read that last
Mhm.
night, but I've got so many other stories in my head right now. Um, One, because of his relationship with Dorian, and he can see that like Dorian is still in love with her. And then the other reason is like that it's like he doesn't want to have to get into a circumstance where it's like the king versus he has to choose between his loyalty to the king and then Selena. So like keeping his distance is like what
Yeah.
he thinks is
So this
best.
one person was
So they have
like,
it interesting.
so this person on Reddit was like, is Throne of Glass YA or NA? And I'm not sure what NA represents, but I'm assuming it's more
New
like
adult.
new adult. Okay.
New adult.
And it said, I'd say it starts as YA and becomes NA towards the end. And someone said, same for me. They don't feel YA after book 3/4.
Okay.
So, like
That's interesting.
Era of Fire, and then Queen of Shadows. Era of Fire and Queen of Shadows is really when it becomes more of an epic fantasy, more like new adult epic fantasy
Yeah.
style. And then
Mm-hmm. Which
especially
so
when
far
you
I
get
do
into the
like.
later
I
ones.
think we've And so far, I do like that we've gone to Dorian and Kale's perspective as well
Mm-hmm.
as Selena. So we already kind of have that multiple
Yeah.
POV kind of vibe, just three
Well,
basically,
and I
but
think
it's still nice.
Assassin's Blade introduces new characters, and that's why I think that will help you too.
Hmm.
Because it
Yeah, I
introduces
do wonder
several new
if it would have
characters.
changed if I had read it first, like you did. I
It
do
might
wonder
have.
if my mindset
It
going
probably would
into it
have.
would have been a little
It would
different.
have given you more context into why she has the attitude that she has.
Her attitude doesn't bother me so much anymore. That was like she's gotten better, and I think now that she's kind of like trying to be good and
Mm-hmm.
not really, she, on the one hand, she seems like she doesn't want to get involved in the
Yeah.
rebellion or whatever yet, but like I'm okay with Celine. Like, she hasn't done anything that's really been like, like not like through the beginning. I think the opening chapters to introduce her character was what threw me off. And after
Mm-hmm.
that, like, because she has this girly side, she likes getting dressed up. She doesn't have a big opportunity to do that, in Throne of Glass, at least that's how it was portrayed. And so I like her character, so, but, so yeah, it's just like nothing is jumping out at me with like claws that just hook me into the world yet, or the story yet. So,
Yeah. It says this
but like I
person
said, I do
says
like that Kale's keeping his distance.
yeah, and like I said, like the first two books, you have the same basic characters that you shuffle through, and like the same basic three or four, and then
Yeah.
after Crown of Midnight, you get introduced to new people. Um,
Yeah.
Whether you're reading Assassin's Blade or if you're reading um, Air of Fire, that's book 3 in it.
Yeah.
So,
Which I keep, you may
and
have to
this,
watch your poker face for a second, but I keep seeing, like, I've been seeing a bunch of memes about, like, the book boyfriend. So it's like Xaden and Kingfisher and Rhysand and like all the epic guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep seeing Rowan, and like it seems like it's from Throne of Glass, so there's gonna be some other guy introduced, and I think his name's Rowan, but I don't know for sure because I am trying to like navigate this situation.
There'll be multiple more guys introduced.
Yeah, multiple. Rowan's the one I keep seeing the most though. So. Because it was, I think the one that I'm like was like the best book boyfriends, and it was like it had a couple from, of course it had Riddick and Xaden, and then it had Kingfisher and Carrion from Quicksilver. I don't know why I forgot that, and then like Cassian, Azrael, and Rhysand from ACOTAR. So.
Yeah, so this particular
Rowan was the only one I didn't know.
This particular comment on that same thread from 4 years, apparently the comment was from 4 years ago, so it's old, but it says the whole series is marked as YA, but I feel like after book 3/4 it gets more and more NA, similar to ACOTAR, but ACOTAR overall felt more NA than Throne of Glass. CC, which is the series I'm reading, is an adult novel, same as Court of Silver Flames. And so yeah, it honestly in my head, this is one, like Throne of Glass was her the first series that she started. Now she didn't she finished them around the same time she finished ACOTAR, but because if you look at the release date for Kingdom of Ash and Silver Flames, I think they're around the same time, maybe, I'm not sure, I'll have to double check on the dates, but like literally it's her first series, so not only has she grown as a writer, so like the first 2 books are her earliest writings. So, I mean, and that's something to keep in mind, too. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful or a mean way, but it's like the writing in those 2 books do not compare to the writing of this. Just the intensity of it and the emotion of it. It's not as much. Now, again, Assassin's Blade was written after those, so it's would make sense that you see more emotion in Assassin's Blade and even more like improving into Assassin's Blade, even though for me I read it first, but it was written after those.
Going to sneeze. Maybe not. Sorry guys.
Bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you. I was like, I can feel it. Yeah, that makes sense. And honestly, it happens a lot, like with a lot of writers, like you'll get book 1 is not as like the Twilight series, for example, like a lot of people do like Eclipse and Breaking Dawn better than Twilight, and they keep getting better and better. The Mortal Instrument series was that way. City of Bones, City of Glass, and City of Ashes are totally different than when she re-kicked off the series, started it again, and did City of Fallen Angels, City of Heavenly Fire, and then the last one. Somebody tell me in the comments, because that's going to bug me. But like the last ones are not quite the same. It got more like, so that's pretty typical. So so about piggybacking, huh?
I was gonna look that up. Who was that?
Okay. Mortal Instrument series, the final book title, City of Heavenly Fire, and then I thought there was one more, or is that the final one?
Okay, I'm not spelling anything today. We'll have to look it up later.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So real quick thing that I wanted to bring up for my first topic is, okay, so I was reading Crown of Midnight, and I did my reading thing for today. I came to like the end of a chapter stopping point the other day, and I was scrolling through Instagram, and I've been getting a lot more Quicksilver style stuff since obviously I finished Quicksilver, and the algorithm on everywhere spies on you, so it knows. And so I guess I got a reel from the author, and she was talking about how she was talking to another person, and her and this person were discussing Quicksilver and the new books coming out later this year, so that's kind of a hot topic right now. And I guess she was talking about how the other person was like, you know what, I wish we had gotten Kingfisher's perspective in this book. And the author said, well, yeah, and I didn't do that for a specific purpose, because there are a lot of twists and you don't want to reveal everything, and so that's why you don't get Kingfisher's perspective, because of the twists that are involved with him. And she's like, have you read Kingfisher's perspective on my website, the Kingfisher chapters? And she's like, what do you mean Kingfisher's chapters? That exists? And she's like, Yeah, you can find them on my website. And she used to use them as a reader magnet for her newsletters, which shows
Mm.
that she started off kind of doing what a lot of indie authors do. And so the other person then read. And so she's like, so the author was like, I'm going to come on here and let you guys know, if you don't know, I have 3 chapters of Kingfisher's perspective on my website. You can read them for free. You don't have to sign up for my newsletter anymore.
Sweet.
They're there. And she did say, you need to read these chapters before book 2 comes out because they give context
Ooh,
for book
okay.
2. And so I went on there and I read them. They are very long chapters.
Mm.
So I'm excited. And 2 of the 3 are like this backstory. We get this
Ah.
poem. We get a poem in this book, and the poem is pages and pages. It's the longest poem I've ever read in a fantasy book ever. And it's pages and pages, and the poem tells a story. And the 2 chapters, the 2 that are really, really long, is that story.
Okay.
And in it, I'm not going to spoil anything, by the way, but there's this situation with this dragon, and there aren't any dragons in this book, so it was kind of like out of the blue. And in it, the dragon, it's like an older dragon, and he breathes out like fire, but it's like a little bit, because he's older, and it's like more brimstone.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized the next book title is called Brimstone.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if the dragon or any drag, it may be relevant to the book title. I'm wondering if like the dragon, the brimstone, that's where I'm wondering.
Hmm.
So it was
That's a
really
good
good,
question.
and I wanted to bring that up for anybody who's read Quicksilver. She does have that on her website too. So read Kingfisher's chapters after you're done with Quicksilver. So the first 2 don't actually really spoil anything. It just expands upon the story and the poem. The last one does kind of like um uh overlay, so it's like his perspective for some of the
Mm-hmm.
chapters, one of the chapters, but it's still not really spoilery. So
That's
it's
fair.
really cute, and I do like it, and it's a nice, like, out of all the moments in the book, it probably would have been this one, that we
Mm.
kind of, not really all of them, but I just liked it because it's like, it is what it is. So
Yeah, I get that.
um so yeah, and based on his character, I thought I would hate him,
Mm-hmm.
but being in his head actually fixes a lot of the issues. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like her version of Kingfisher is different than how Kingfisher actually is, and
Mm-hmm.
then the
Yeah.
fact that it was like the
Which
first 2
happens
were like a
quite a
backstory.
bit. And that's where
Yeah.
and that's what, like, with Tamlin, that's why I'm
Mm-hmm.
beginning to think that there's more to his in his head. Like, if we were ever to get his POV the way we get
Oh
Reese's
my gosh.
POV, I feel like that would explain a lot of his behavior. Like, I'm a firm believer that his way of, like, dealing with trauma is holding people that he cares about close and keeping them there and not letting them wander
Mm-hmm.
off. Because, I mean, you know what I'm saying, like with
Mm-hmm.
what happened with his
Yeah.
family, and then after, like, I don't know, I want, I if
Everyone.
Nesta can get a redemption for all the crap she put Feyre through when she was a human, then Tamlin can get a redemption. That's all I'm saying.
He deserves one. Yep.
I
And hey,
mean,
Dane kind of got one
that
in
would
Onyx
leave
Storm, so
he
like
did.
Tamlin deserves one too.
Oh, that reminds me. I saw a theory that made some kind of comment that they were wondering if Dane would be able to see people's memories if they can't remember
Mm.
them. Like the that like yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Uh-huh.
okay.
Uh-huh. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. I see where
Anyway,
I see where you're going with that.
another thing that I saw is I saw a clip of Sarah J. Mass, and it made me think of you because it was more of like an a writer quote or comment, and she essentially said that I loved the comment that she made because she said
Mm-hmm.
that oh, that she gives herself the biggest advice that she could give to writers is that she to give yourself permission to suck. And so she talked about how, like, if you looked at any of her first drafts for any of her books, they would have been horrendous. And she said she's talked to a lot of writers that say that they have these different ideas, but when they put them on paper, it just doesn't work and it doesn't sound right. It doesn't look right. It's not good. And so she says, like, she said she's like they're so bad that they're like just messy trash is what she described her rough to her, like her initial very first draft of her stories are. um
Mm-hmm.
and so I thought it was kind of interesting.
That is
And
honestly the
I'd heard
best
you
advice
say
that
that
you can give a
before
writer.
to like to just get it
Yeah,
on
it's
paper.
like I am a full advocate. Your first draft is not meant to be seen by anybody but you.
Yeah.
And so it's important to what I call word vomit onto the page. Just write the story to get it out of your head, and everything can be fixed later. And
Yeah.
I finally like learned this. And so it's freed me up to like, you know, do so much more than I ever would have
Yeah.
initially tried. Like I have this anthology I'm working on right now. It's like a pro-life anthology, and so all the stories in there is about a woman who chooses not to have an abortion. And so like all of our stories are revolving around that. And so for me, there was a lot of like planning the timing and stuff with her character, and like when this happens and when she goes for that appointment and what symptoms happen when.
Yeah.
And it's a mess now, but we're trying to figure that out in the editing phase because I just needed to write the story, and I just kind of wrote it and just did a bunch of random stuff to like
Yeah.
fill in the details. And like I've even told some writers, like, okay, we all have that moment where we're trying to write something and you can't think of the word you're looking for and it's just not
Yeah.
good. Fill it in with something. I don't care if you use the word banana in all caps, just fill it in and figure it out later. Like
Yeah.
just keep your flow moving. So I love that she's also had a lot of other quotes too, I think. Was she the one that was like, I can't remember. My mind just went blank, but she had, from what I remember, I think she's had a lot of other good quotes about being, oh yeah, I remember. She talked about how when you're writing, it's like being in love, where you're
Oh,
constantly
yes.
waiting for the person to text you back and you're thinking about them. And when somebody asked, like, that's how she describes when you're actually really into writing a book. And it's so true because, like, your brain will just think about it as you go about your day. And it literally is like how when you're in love, you're looking for, like, oh, did he text me back yet? Or, you know, did I get any more messages? And you're just obsessing over it. And that's kind of how it's like to write a story. And she has some of the most relatable quotes. So thanks for sharing. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Well, that was the only things I had.
Okay. Um,
I didn't have much
so
this week
the
at
big
all.
thing that I had, which I saw this video and it was like a guy giving author advice and how this could change things. And I didn't really see how it applied to authors so much, but I still wanted to bring it up. So the Kindle books, apparently they had this feature that I didn't even know about where you could download your Kindle books. And you, like, a lot of people would use it to download it to their computer and not necessarily have to read on a Kindle device. Well, they're going to take away that ability soon. And you also, like, a lot of people would transfer it via like a USB option. And so it made you feel like, okay, I bought the book, I have it on my Kindle, but I still own it, so I can have it on my computer or whatever else you want to do it.
Yeah.
And they're taking away that ability. And so a lot of people, I've heard some people mention that it's like, well, we don't own books anymore. We're kind of like with all the streaming service stuff. And that is kind of true, where it's like you don't own the music on Spotify, or you don't own your Disney movies or whatever other, like your Netflix movies or whatever streaming service. Like you're paying for the service and it's like borrowing it to an extended point. And so it's kind of feels like somebody was like, I feel like life is moving that direction where ownership is going to be less and less of a thing the more that we do streaming and services and stuff like that. And I kind of see that as kind of true.
The more that things are digital, the less like actual true ownership people are gonna see. Like,
Yes,
and
that's a good way
honestly,
of putting it.
the
100%.
best way to combat that is just to have a physical copy. And I get so frustrating because physical copies can definitely be expensive. Like paper copies, like for example, I pulled up Crescent City Book 1 just for like price numbers. Like on Amazon, they have it, apparently it's 30% off, but you can buy the paperback for like 14 like 13 $14. I'm gonna round them up to the nearest dollar just to make it easier. It's like $14, whereas the Kindle version is $8.21, so it's almost like not like a little over $8. And so it's like, I get it, like it is more expensive to buy an actual physical book, but then you don't have to worry about
Ownership
losing
stuff.
the copy.
Yeah.
And if money is a problem, there are websites like Thrift Books where you can buy literally popular books cheaper because they're secondhand.
Yeah. Honestly, that's cheaper than what I got my Crescent City. Like they had a buy two get one book free, and so I bought both of them for $20 a piece, and I got a third book free. So
So it's like,
And honestly, I've seen a lot of instances where for me, the Kindle prices are ridiculous because
mm-hmm,
it's like $8 to $10 for a Kindle book when it's like $2 or $3 more. I can just get an actual paper copy. So
mm-hmm,
to me, it's worth it.
yeah.
But it is an issue. And honestly, if you're strapped for money and you want a lot of Kindle books, a lot of people do Kindle Unlimited anyway, which is
Mm-hmm.
still kind of like borrowing them.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's going to be as impactful as some people are thinking, but I do kind of understand
Well,
people being a
see,
little
if
upset.
people like, I don't,
But
are you allowed to do that with Kindle Unlimited books? Because if that's the case, it's like you don't really own Kindle Unlimited books. You're just, it's like a subscription service. You're paying a service to be able to read the books while you have the service, while you have the subscription service. Like, I get that. Like, it's like if I watch a Barbie movie on Netflix, I don't see myself as owning that movie because I am
right,
paying a subscription service to be able to access it. Now, if I
yeah,
bought a DVD and that DVD had a digital code that I typed into the computer that I have saved, because like Movies Everywhere, I think is what it's called. I have a bunch of like digital copies of my DVDs that had the digital copy code in the little sleeve, and I put that code in and have a digital copy of that movie. Now that digital copy's mine. The way I see it, it's mine because I bought the DVD that came with the digital copy to get the digital version. That's the way I see it.
yeah.
But it's
This
like if
is
I'm
all
subscribing
Kindle
to,
book.
yeah,
So like, if you bought the ebook version of Crescent City,
yeah,
you could not download that to
yeah,
read offline or to
yeah,
have on your computer.
yeah,
And so, and that the read offline would be the biggest deal for me because if
yeah.
you don't have a good
Oh
Wi-Fi
yeah,
connection or you have a data
that would be
limit, then
really
reading online
irritating.
may be a problem.
Yeah.
Which to me, my Kindle device, I don't know if all Kindles are like this, but mine, I read
Mm-hmm.
offline. So once you download the book, it's on your Kindle and you can read
Mm-hmm.
offline, and that's what I do. So if that's what they're preventing, like
Yeah,
I
I
think you
don't
can
know.
still download
I
it to your
couldn't
Kindle.
see. I couldn't
I
see
hope
that.
not.
I think it's talking about like the actual physical file rather than
Right,
just
yeah.
downloading it on from the cloud to the Kindle
To your
itself.
library.
Which
Right.
if
Okay.
and I can kind of see what they're trying to prevent. They're trying because you said it could be sent on. It talked about how it could be put onto like USB drives and stuff, and like moved it. See, that's I can see what they're trying to prevent. They're trying to prevent like pirating and people giving the books to their friends.
Which is a big issue for indie authors. So I actually think this could be a positive thing because, we've talked
Yeah,
before about us indie authors getting in
yeah,
trouble if we're pirated, but it's not
yeah,
our fault, and getting
yeah,
banned from being on KDP
yeah.
if they're in the Kindle
And
Unlimited.
that could
So
be,
it could
and
be an
that's why,
issue.
and because when you were talking, that was a thought that was going through my head. Is like I can see what they're trying to. I can see both sides. I can see what Amazon's trying to do, because
Yeah.
Kindle is essentially Amazon, and I can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to keep people from being able
Hmm.
to download it and upload it to these public viewing websites and stuff like that. Like I get that, and if money's a problem, find your local library. I'm a huge
There's
advocate
online
for
library
libraries.
resources now
Like,
too.
for
Yeah.
example,
If you like
I
Kindles.
money is tight at the moment, at least for me, because it's tax season, and you know how
Yeah.
certain companies like to charge you hundreds of dollars just to make sure that you've given the government all your money. But I canceled my Audible subscription, and I was kind of like down in the dumps about it because I was able to listen to the dramatized version of like part one of the dramatized version, but Spotify wouldn't let me start part two because you have to buy it. And so I was like, I don't have a credit, and I had to cancel that, and I'm like, ugh. And then I got to thinking that our local library has access to the app called Hoopla, which is looks something like this, and you can't really see it very well, but it's HOOPLA, and essentially it's like you can get ebooks, audiobooks, it's like audiobooks, comics, ebooks, movies, music, television, and binge passes, and so it's literally just you can get digital stuff. And I got the dramatized part two for this book, and I was able to borrow it
That's wonderful.
for like
I know
you're
my
checking
books
out
are
a
all
book
on
from the
Hoopla.
library, and so it's like
Yeah. By the way, for
yeah,
anybody who who is curious, if you're a person who wants to support indie authors and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
well, if I borrow from the library, I'm not buying their book. The libraries pay us a certain amount to buy our books and have access to them.
Yes.
And like mine are all in draft to digital, which does upload them to Hoopla and other library resources. So my books are all available on those sources, and I get money whenever. I think you have to tell them to actually buy the book deliberately, but like it's available there. But that's a really cool
Yeah.
what was I gonna say? That's a really cool thing that
I
you're able
mean,
to still listen to
there
the
are a
audiobook and
hand,
stuff.
like,
It's a
yeah.
great
So
way to do it on a budget.
here's all yours.
Ooh,
Like, it
nice.
has like your Light Magi, it has like Hunter, your the Valiant series, like the ebooks that you can download and read, that you can
Yeah.
borrow and read.
That's great.
Yeah, so it's
Never
like,
seen I never actually bothered to look myself,
yeah,
so
so it's like, and I, yeah, and it's like it's like, if I go to like my Hoopla, I can borrow 5 titles at a time, and my
Mhm.
audiobook returns in 20 days. So I think it's have like 21 days. I think it said 21 days, something like that. And it's like,
That's really
if
cool.
money, if you
Because I had to
literally,
cancel my Audible.
if you
I was
are,
disappointed about
yeah,
that too,
yeah,
so
like if using a Kindle, if buying physical copies of books is out of the question, because I totally get it. Um, like both of us do, we get it. It's like
yeah.
libraries are also a resource. Like, and if your library doesn't have, like, ask them if they have access to Hoopla, and if not, encourage them to to join access to it. Like, it's a huge thing. You just type in your library card, like in your password and your library card number and your password if your library has it, and like every time I open it,
Mhm.
it says, it lists my, every time I open the app, it lists my library's name because I've selected what libraries, and there's like a huge selection where you can go through and select your library, and so it's really neat. So, like, yeah, and
That's
I get
cool.
it. It's
I need to get me a
frustrating.
library card from
Yeah.
our local library. I'm close enough to be able to access two. One of them is
Ooh.
small and I don't think would have it,
Yeah.
but another one is kind of medium
You might
sized and may
try.
actually have access
Yeah.
to that. So
We can do some googling after the stream and see, like, go to their websites and
yeah,
see.
that'd be fun.
But yeah, like,
Yeah,
I love it, and it works so well, and it's the people at the library are fantastic, and it's like,
I miss I
you know,
miss the library where you live. My hometown library, because I like
yeah,
grew up there. So there
yeah.
was a few people, like they're probably not still there, but like they've known me since I was a kid. So like when I was in high
Mm-hmm.
school and I would come there, they knew that I would just read all the time and rent all
Mm-hmm.
these,
Yeah,
books and movies. And like
yeah.
I remember the old
Oh, I
library
do
building
too.
because like they
Yeah.
revised it and rebuilt another one, but
Uh-huh.
I remember the
The
old
kids,
school
the
one and
kids, the
like
kids' books were all the way in the very back, and there was one hallway on the right, and you
yeah,
walk all the way back. And Dad would stay towards the front because that's where the adults section was at, and you go back
yeah.
to the kids and the teens and all that was in the back. Yeah, that's the
Oh my
police. That's
gosh,
the
that's
police.
reaching really
I
far back
know.
in my
It's
mind.
like a
'Cause we
vague
were
memory.
young.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so many memories.
nostalgia. All
Yeah,
right, so piggybacking off of that, the best apps to find new books. So I'm just gonna run through a few of these. So Libby lends out free ebooks and audiobooks through libraries in 78 countries. I had no idea this was gonna
I
be a
have
library thing,
downloaded
so it
Libby,
connects really well.
but oh yeah, I think I have Libby, but I don't. No, I have Libib, but
Yeah,
I can't
so
log
it
in.
works
So.
for 90% of US libraries. You can search for and check out anything instantly for free. So audiobooks, definitions, you can click on any word and get
Sweet.
definitions. You can highlight things. You can have multiple cards. You can use multiple library cards within a single Libby account. That helps you check which library has the shortest waiting list for a book in high demand.
Mm-hmm.
Libby is digital, so you can't use it for physical books,
I
but
think I've downloaded it
so
before, but
Canopy,
I don't have it
yeah,
downloaded currently, but I have before.
right. I've never used any of these, so I find it really
Ooh,
fascinating and can
yeah,
help, like, if you can't get to your library, like
yeah.
the week we were snowed in, you could still be able to borrow books. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a really nice.
Oh
Or if
yeah.
you're just more of a digital person. So Canopy provides free top-notch feature films and documentaries. You log in with a library card. The libraries limit the number of videos you can watch monthly. So that's more of a video one. Hoopla, which we already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
WorldCat tells you which of 10,000 global libraries near you have a particular book. It works in multiple languages. You can search for books in print, ebook, braille, audio, and other formats. So, there's a bunch of other ones listed, but that's kind of the big ones that were mentioned. So I thought that was pretty cool. Um, did you have anything else, or
No,
because I have a couple? Okay.
no, yeah, you go for it.
All right. So 12 finished romantasy book series that won't leave you desperate for a sequel. So I'm waiting. We're both waiting on the next book after Onyx Storm, and we're going to be waiting a while. And now I'm waiting for Brimstone, and we're just waiting and waiting for just a bunch of stuff. So if you don't want to wait for anything, like I love having finished series because then I don't have to wait and I can binge read it if I get really into it.
Yeah.
And that's what I prefer. So I wanted to go over some of these. So number 12 is the War of Lost Hearts trilogy, which may be something you and I were interested in because it's Carissa Broadbent's other series
Oh yes, I remember
that she
looking at
wrote
that. Yeah.
before. Yeah, Daughter of No Worlds, I think, is the first one.
Yes.
So that
Okay.
series
Yes,
was
that was one
finished.
of them. I had saw because I saw the covers for them, and I'm like, ooh, that's pretty.
It is pretty. I love the cover of that one. It's got like this girl in this red dress, and I think she's holding a sword, and it's a really beautiful cover.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's number 12. So number 11 is the Prison Healer series written by Lynette Noni. Um, it's adult romantic fantasy. Centers around Kiva Meriden as she survives the
Okay.
notorious death prison
Quick
Zelendorf.
comment. Quick comment. The
Yes.
Carissa Broadbent series, it has 3 main books with a prequel book.
Okay.
So just
Cool.
like technically 4.
Thank you for mentioning that, because this one I don't think lists out the number of books, so that's interesting. Yeah, so the Prison Healer trilogy, Kiva has to navigate the death prison Zalendov. She's wrongly sentenced at the age of 10, so she's 17 years old, and she's the healer and is charged with keeping the captured rebel queen alive. But instead of leaving a dying woman to her fate, she volunteers in her place and must endure a series of elemental challenges. Um, so it's got heartfelt romance and stuff like that. So it's got an uh interesting premise there.
Mm-hmm.
So number 10 is the Grishaverse series by Leigh Bardugo, and I've heard of this. Shadow and Bone, that series. I did watch season 1 on Netflix. I haven't read the books yet, and I need to. And I hear that season 2 kind of went off the rails a little bit. I've heard some people ranty about season 2.
Yeah.
I really need to read the books. It's for me, when I watch the TV series, it's got really interesting world building, so I'm actually would be interested in reading Shadow and Bone, like the books, to see how even more in depth the like world building and the magic system works and stuff like that. So that one's one, and it's complete, so that would be another good one because it's the whole series is already out.
Mm-hmm.
Number 9, Villains and Virtue series by A.K. Caganio. I'm sorry I'm butchering that. But it begins with Throne of the Dark, is a slow burn romantic fantasy novel that follows Damien, a grumpy half-demon blood mage who accidentally chains Amia, a bubbly and obnoxious human, to his side. Killing her would be easier. He decides to drag her along on his villainous crusade, but he's hoping to live up to his birthright. He is inspired to help the woman by his side. So the covers on those are pretty, like, they're not really pretty, but they're kind of artsy. So if you like more artsy style covers, it's interesting. So, number 8 is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. It's a cozy fantasy romance. So it's a young woman, Evangeline, whose heart is broken, and it leads her to make some risky decisions. The most dangerous of all is with a handsome fate named Jax. The decision to bargain with a fate is always accompanied by heavy consequences, and she accidentally binds herself to him and owing him 3 kisses to be called at any time. So that's kind of interesting. Number 7 is the Winter Night trilogy by Catherine Arden. I think the book one is The Bear and the Nightingale. It's a whimsical tale that incorporates many popular Russian folktales to build out its magical world. It's in a town at the edge of the Russian wilderness. People make sure to honor household spirits. Vasia's world comes crashing down when her new stepmother forbids them to do so, and the evil creatures begin to close in. I haven't read a lot that is based on like Russian like style culture. A lot of the fantasy, like, it's all been medieval for the medieval style fantasy for the longest time. So like Fourth Wing being different, Fae kind of got in there for a while too. So like anything that's like a little different for me is kind of fascinating. And then Russia's not something I know much about culturally or historically.
Yeah.
So, number 6 is The Kingmaker Chronicles, written by Amanda Boucher. So follows Catalia Fisa, and as she avoids her destiny as a kingmaker and disguises herself as a soothsayer in a traveling circus. But Kat has the magical ability to find truth and lies, and her identity doesn't remain hidden for long once she meets Griffin, an ambitious warlord who wants to use her magic in his conquered realm. It's full of spicy romance. Number 5, the Bargainer series, written by Laura Felisa. Rhapsodic is book number 1. It follows Calypso Lillis, also known as Callie, and she's a siren who's made deals over the years with a man known as the Bargainer, who can make anything happen for a steep price. Kind of reminds me of Rumpelstiltskin from Once Upon a Time, it sounds like. But for 7 years, she's left without a request for repayment, but when the Bargainer finally returns for her, it's to collect on her IOUs to save his people, the Fae. It's a thrilling, fast-paced, entertaining romantasy read. And there's undeniable chemistry between her and the main guy. And it's spicy fantasy romance. Next up, these covers are actually really pretty. I feel like these covers would have been kind of what ACOTAR's covers should be. It's the Kinder Poison trilogy by Natalie May. Young adult fantasy romance, follows Zaru. She's chosen as the human sacrifice in a deadly game between 3 heirs. She navigates the landscape as the human sacrifice, and her relationships with the elder and younger princes Cassian and Elian. So it's a love triangle. Number 3, Where Oceans Burn, is a duology by Casey L. Bond. Fantasy romance. It's lesser known, but it's a great addition. Okay, tell me what it's about, please. So it's about a sky warrior named Elria is forced to confront a sea guardian named Crest when she accidentally falls from the sky. The forbidden love, betrayal, the search for truth, adds like a thrilling element to the narrative. So that's interesting. The Red Queen series by Victoria Aveyard is number 2, which we've talked about that one. I actually have Red Queen, so I hope to reread it and compare it with Powerless soon. So we've talked about that. Which that one's really interesting because it's like 17-year-old Mare is a 17-year-old Red who lives in a world ruled by the Silver Elite, and then she finds herself possessing a deadly power right alongside the Silvers, and so they declare her to be a long-lost Silver Princess and force her into engagement with the younger Silver Prince, Maven. So that inspired my one of my Valiant books called Enslaved, so that was a huge influence for me when I was younger. Number 1 is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. Never heard of it. I don't know what it is at all. So, and we know what that one's about. So yeah, so if you're looking for a series that's actually finished, you might find one on one of those lists.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Awesome.
And then the last one I had was just about how it's like a TV show more than anything else, but Once Upon a Time is a TV show based on fairy tales, so the classics, so it's kind of like book characters kind of in with it, but it was just about that, so it's not, that was more like I wanted to know about it myself, but one of the main actors was talking about, it needs a reboot and this is what it should be, and I'm like, we've already talked about reboots and a lot of other things on this channel, on this podcast before, so
I mean, that's kind of a weird show to do a reboot for, because it's literally just fairy tales, so it's like, how do you make a reboot unique without, I don't know, that would be, it's kind of a series that you almost can't do a reboot for.
I don't know, she said it should be a reboot with new people.
Because, the show itself is a reboot of the original stories, so it's like a reboot of a reboot. Okay.
Kind of, it's not really a reboot, but it's like,
in my head, that's how it looks. Because they're, redoing a lot of the stories and putting their own twists on the stories, so it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. She was basically saying you could get new people and, you could do fairy tale characters with a different cast and different characters, and in that one they added a ton of twists, their own spin on so many of the stories, that there's lots of ways you can retell them in different ways. So I guess is kind of the angle she was going for, but so
awesome. All right, guys, let us know how your reads are going. If you have any juicy topics that you want us to talk about next week, let us know.
Yep. Or join our Discord. I think you
Yes.
have that in the bio
Yes,
now,
I
don't
need
you?
to. Yes. Well, it's not. It's in our YouTube bio. It's not in the comments because the link will expire, and I'm not about to go in and change it for every single video. So,
Yeah, that
if
would
you
be
want the
tedious.
updated link for Discord, make sure you're the checking the link in our YouTube channel. Should be there.
Yep.
All right,
All
guys.
right. Well,
See you later.
yep.
Okay.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.